What we have is a Unitarian clergy abuse enabler, one who has A, condoned, and B, even participated in misuse of the criminal justice system in attempts to silence my criticism of Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, is now the mayor of Côte-de-Neige and Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. So we'll see if she tries to abuse her power as mayor. It will be interesting indeed to see whether or not Sue Montgomery is foolish enough to try to use her influence as mayor to persuade the SPVM to have me arrested on some more bogus criminal charges. Look forward to seeing what may happen in that regard. And I will, of course, be raising that as a possibility, and I'll also be raising questions about her past participation in and condoning of misuse of the criminal justice system in efforts to silence me, because there's no question at all that she has, at minimum, condoned misuse of the criminal justice system by not just the Unitarian Universalist Association, but also the Unitarian Church of Montreal. And as far as I'm concerned, she's even participated to some extent in misuse of the criminal justice system in efforts to prevent me from engaging in peaceful public protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. So, as I said, we shall see what happens. But I will be putting that out there. Basically, I will be continuing to expose her complicity in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up efforts, and I will be continuing to expose and denounce her participation in Montreal Unitarians calling in misleading or outright false complaints to the SPVM in efforts to force an end to my protest outside the church. So yeah, I think we'll protest for, basically until this segment of video runs out. And then I think we're going to call it a day. Let's just see here. Yeah, we got about 10 minutes of recording time left, and I think that will do for today. Had quite a good protest today, I'd say. And it's certainly, I think, being a worthwhile one. Okay, somebody leaving the church here. Looks like possibly a musician. Looks like he might have a horn or something in the backpack he's got. So, anyhow, yeah, I'm quite happy with today's protest. It's gone quite nicely, and the sun seems to be poking out. But yeah, it's definitely this weekend's theme is how, as far as I'm concerned, in the past, and indeed the not so distant past, SPVM police officers, to say nothing of Quebec Crown prosecutors and Quebec court judges, have essentially misused and abused the criminal justice system at the behest of Montreal Unitarians in ways that either attempt to suppress my ability to engage in peaceful public protest or actually prevent my ability to engage in peaceful public protest for one full year. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a betrayal of the many Canadian soldiers who fought and died in World War I and World War II and other wars to preserve freedom and democracy in Canada, to say nothing of the rest of the world. Because let's face it, in World War One, and World War II, Canadian soldiers were fighting for democracy in Europe as much as Canada. But nonetheless, if we go back to 1914 to 1918, essentially Canada was part of the British Empire still, more or less. Well, maybe not part of the Empire because it was ostensibly independent, but nonetheless had a very close relationship with Britain, and Britain was allied with France, and France was invaded by Germany, and so basically, a democratic France and a democratic Britain were indeed fighting against a rather tyrannical, certainly not very democratic Germany. So yes, they were fighting for liberté, égalité, and fraternité, and those kind of things. They were fighting for the freedom of speech and freedom of expression that people in the British Empire had at the time. We've advanced things, I think, since then, but there's basic ideas about freedom of speech back then. I just got another text message. Let's see here. Okay, right. Okay, so just dealing a little texting there. Anyhow, I have to say that I'm very happy with how today's protest has gone. And one of the things I'm happy about is that the SPVM haven't bothered me today. They basically have kept their nose out of things for the better part of 2 years now. Very few interventions in the last 2 years. Basically more or less intervention free in 2016 and 2017. Nothing really worth talking about except for this one intervention on May 1st of 2016, where a couple of SPVM cops essentially were trying to intimidate me into ending my protest, but that's more than a year and a half ago now. And so far, I haven't been arrested or anything, as essentially that's what the threat was, is, that the Unitarian Church of Montreal was once more, planning to bring some kind of criminal charges against me, and my response was, let's go. Let's go, let's have some more fun in court. And since then there's been no threats or intimidation on the part of the SPVM, so things are improving, but I do realize that things can regress, things can go backwards, and so we do need to be vigilant. And I do find it very sad that in the 21st century, it's necessary for me and indeed other people to fight against police repression of peaceful public protest and other legitimate freedom of expression. Anyhow, we'll just wrap this up soon. I think we got things to do today. And I see I've just got a few minutes of recording time left. I may continue this a little further, but I think we're pretty well done for today. I think we've had a quite successful Remembrance Day protest, with the theme being standing up against SPVM police repression of the civil rights and freedoms and democratic principles that Canadian soldiers fought and died for in World War I and World War II and various other wars. Very unfortunate how the SPVM on too many occasions has shown considerable disrespect for freedom of speech and the right to engage in peaceful public protest and so on. And not just with yours truly. I mean, we just have to look to 2012 and how they repressed the student protests quite violently, including some serious injuries to some of the people involved. But I saw flashbang grenades going off over the heads of old people who were just marching in the street. They were just exercising their right to protest, and yet the SPVM was like throwing flashbang grenades over their heads to disperse them, essentially trying to prevent them from protesting. Very, very sad to see in 2012, to say nothing of 2013. So that's it. Basically I like to think that one of the ways that I honor the soldiers who fought and died in World War I and World War II, etc., ostensibly to preserve freedom and justice and peace in Canada and the world, is to stand up against any efforts